Hey, what's up? Jeff Lerner here, bringing you more content on how to have an awesome life. Today, we're talking about how to build your credit, how to build it fast. Hopefully, you're with me that credit is really, really darn important, and that ultimately having access to capital, the ability to access other people's money, ideally. I mean, your own money's cool, but other people's money's even cooler. And if you have the ability to access that, it unlocks so much potential to create freedom and awesomeness in your life. And credit is the key. So let's talk about it. Okay, so how do we build credit fast? I'm sure we've heard, we've probably all, most of us, done at least a base level analysis of credit and learned about, credit bureaus and FICO scores, and you've probably been asked what's your credit score, or maybe you went to buy something and they pulled it and they told you what your credit score is. But I want to hopefully make credit more important to you. If this video can accomplish anything, it's to make credit not one of these things that we sort of, like taxes, we sort of begrudgingly accept as a part of our life that, we have to deal with, but actually to get excited and go, man, this is a tool. This is, credit is a key that can unlock a lot of potential for me if I take it seriously. And I'll share just briefly personally that, I was a jazz piano player all through my 20s. I studied jazz piano in college. I was gratefully able to get a scholarship, so I was able to go to college, but I had to play in these bands and I had to play all these gigs at night to pay for, books and lodging and everything. And this is a really hard life. All through the decade of my 20s, I never made more than about $40,000 a year as a musician, and that was between gigs and school stipends and teaching some lessons. Like I was busy. But one of the things I did right in my 20s is I was able to. I focused on my credit. Honestly, I actually saw an infomercial. There was an infomercial about credit repair that I saw, and it kind of got me going down this rabbit hole about because it was saying, if you fix your credit, you can buy rental properties, you can get access to capital to do all this stuff. And I was a jazz musician, so I was always creating and improvising, and I was like, I'll be an improviser in my financial life too, and I'll get access to credit, and I'll be able to do all these amazing things. I didn't know, but I was right that by focusing on credit young, it would create some possibilities for me that, here I am, it's multiple decades later, and I'm still benefiting from some of these things that I was, fortunate to be focused on in my early 20s. Back in my early 20s, I was actually able to acquire a couple rental properties. And yeah, the market was different, a little different back then. This was like the early 2000s. But basically, even though I was young and I was underqualified, probably in terms of financial wherewithal, I had really good credit, even in my early 20s. And I was able to get my hands on some rental properties that I still own. Now it's almost 20 years later. And literally now, one of them I refinanced to a 15-year note. It ended up getting paid off. The others are still being paid down, but I've basically almost able to totally pay my bills now, my basic bills, just off of properties that I got without a whole lot of money because I had really good credit. So I just want to share at a personal level, let credit be a win in your life. Let it be something that you smile about and you choose to pay attention to, and not that you just resent and resist and wish wasn't a part of your life, because it is. You have to deal with it whether you want to or not. So might as well deal with it effectively, right? So here is the number one tactic for quickly building up good credit. And it's called piggybacking, or another term is the authorized user technique. So I help a lot of people start businesses. I have a company called Entre Institute. If you want to check it out. But we help people start businesses or grow businesses if they already have a business. And one of my favorite quotes is Richard Branson quote. You probably know who Richard Branson is, famous billionaire. And he says, the number one job of entrepreneurs is attracting capital, whether it's from investors, from friends, from family, or especially from your customers. The number one job of entrepreneurs is attracting capital. That's every day you need to be in the business of attracting money to your business if you want to grow a business. And I would argue that everybody's in business because everybody runs an economy every day. It's called your life. Your life has inflows, outflows. It has assets and liabilities. It has income. It has expenses, right? We all run a business, the business of life. And as the CEO of that business, our number one job is to be attracting capital to our business. And credit's a huge piece of that. The fastest way to get access to capital and to ultimately get access to capital so that you can invest in assets that create more access to capital for you is to become an authorized user on other people's credit vehicles that have established credit. So, in simple terms, basically find somebody that has a credit card that's got good credit and let them add you to the credit card account so you get a card in your name. Now, listen, most credit card companies, they'll let you go on and you can apply spending limits and all this stuff. You could go to your grandparent or your boss at work. Maybe be careful with the boss at work thing. Like, do a good job for him or her first so that they're inclined to do you a favor. But, find someone in your life that's established and go to them and say, listen, would you, and explain what you're doing. Say, I'm trying to establish better personal credit, and getting added as an authorized user to someone else's credit card is the single most effective thing I can do to quickly establish good credit. You can go set up spending controls, or you can keep the card. I don't even have to know what the credit card number is. Like, it's people, people are kind of skittish about this idea, but there's ways to do it where essentially the person has zero liability. There's still going to be a basic level of trust, but have the card sent to them and say, you never even have to give it to me. I don't even want to have access to the card. I don't even want to know what the number is. Or have them go online and set up spending controls that basically say any transaction greater than $5, they're going to get a text message that they can approve. Like, there's ways to protect yourself structurally for helping people do this, but you as somebody trying to establish a base of good credit, I'm telling you, there is nothing you can do that works faster than piggybacking on other people's good credit. Now, it's not the same as co-signing. You're not becoming a co-signer, and you're not asking someone to co-sign on your credit. That's the coolest thing about this, is that you can completely inherit the benefit of somebody else's credit, somebody else's good established credit profile, and have that be a positive impact on your own without having them take responsibility or liability for you and your credit, and without you having to do the same for them. So if you're talking to somebody about this, maybe it's a family member and they say, I don't want to co-sign, make sure you're clear. This is not the same as co-signing. This is no different than in fact, this has happened through my business. We have business lines of credit, and I'll get a card for somebody else in the company. Like, our COO, for example, one of my businesses has a copy or has a card, her own version of My American Express, which is attached to my business because she needs to be able to buy stuff. She doesn't have liability on the account, but her credit actually benefits from being an authorized user on that account. That's an example. Credit is one of those things. Like, I remember somebody once told me about attorneys. He said, attorneys may seem like a pain in the butt, but if you're doing a business deal, attorneys are a whole lot cheaper on the front side than the back side. Like, it may seem like a lot to have an attorney review your contracts and spend the money to have an attorney, even draw up the contracts. But whatever money you spend on the front end hiring attorneys is going to be so much less than the money and the time and the emotional drain of everything that is going to happen if you end up having to hire attorneys on the back end because there was something missed on the front end of the deal, or something went south and something wasn't accounted for, right? That's my 2 cents on attorneys. Credit is the same way. That I know that in a perfect world, everybody would start dealing proactively and effectively with credit before they have challenges. But let's be honest. If somebody's on YouTube watching a video about how to build good credit fast, there's probably a better than 50% chance that you, the person watching, are watching because you've actually had a credit challenge, and now you have to play catch up. Now you have to try to do damage control, and you're not necessarily starting with a clean slate. So here's the thing. In whatever situation you're in, the authorized user technique or the piggybacking technique, that's a great decision. You should absolutely do that. Whatever you have to do in your life to build loyalty and affinity and trust and value for someone so that they'll let you do that, like, do it. It's almost like a trump card. It's the one thing that's a universal prescription for anybody, whether it's improving broken credit or building new, fresh, good credit. But if you do have credit issues, just from personal experience, I recommend that you do actually do credit repair. I've had experience of credit repair being really, really effective. I had, back in 2008, I had a business that, I've told bits of my story throughout these videos, but back in 2008, I owned a franchise restaurant, and it went out of business, right? And that was a bad time in the economy. And I had almost $500,000 in debt that I was personally guaranteed on my name that I had to work out of in different scenarios. Some of it was with landlords, some of it was with a bank, some of it was with state of Texas workforce commission and payroll taxes and sales tax. And it was a total mess. So I had all these different workout scenarios with these different creditors. And that really damages your credit. So I had to do some hard work, even though I was, starting to make really good money, because that was when I started to get on the internet and do digital marketing. I found myself consistently hamstrung where having cash wasn't enough. I couldn't, I'd walk into a bank and I'd have the cash and I still couldn't get the loan. Let's say I'd want to buy a piece of property and I had the down payment. I still couldn't get the loan because I had credit issues because of what happened with those restaurants. So I aggressively pursued credit repair and got great results. And still to this day, I do pay for one of those credit monitoring services. I'll share, I don't have a stake in this, but I will share that the company that I've gotten the best results with is creditrepair.com. It's done really well by me. In fact, both my wife and I are signed up for it. So creditrepair.com, for what it's worth, whether you use that service or a different service, credit repair can be really, really effective. And I know a lot of people don't do credit repair because, and again, I work with a lot of people who are like, I want to start a business and I want to get access to capital, but I have credit challenges. And I say, have you considered credit repair? And they say, no, I think that stuff, it all seems like a scam or it's not going to work. Credit repair is actually legit. Like the process of writing letters to the bureaus and disputing the charges, and how bureaus, they have a loss mitigation process where it's like a certain number of the disputes they don't even bother to fight. They just remove the items. Like that stuff's all real. Credit repair in general as a concept is not a scam. It's very legit, and I suggest it if you need it. Again, I can recommend creditrepair.com because I've used it. And then the final thing about building good credit is whatever you have to do, if start as an authorized user, so now you have hopefully a base of credit, but do open credit cards. Like a lot of people take this approach to credit that it's like nitroglycerin, and the best strategy is just not to handle it, not to touch it, right? That's not true. In the world we live in, you need to be establishing good, positive credit. And beyond the authorized user technique, or even in addition to the authorized user technique, what you need to be doing is opening credit lines, using them enough to maintain them, paying them off, and then take the time to actually call your banks or call your lenders or whoever the creditor is and ask them for credit limit increases. So take one of those offers you see in the mail, make sure you get a credit card that has no annual fee, get a card, and even if they issue you a card for $200, use it every month, pay it off, do that for 3 months or 6 months, and then call them. And you can call, and when you call in, ask to speak to the credit department or the credit limit department. Tell them you want to talk about a credit increase. And you can usually ask them and say, hey, what spending patterns do I need to establish, or what spending history do I need to establish so that you guys will actually raise my credit limit? And it's not because as soon as you get the credit, you're going to go use it, you're going to max it out. No, it's quite the contrary. You want to get as much potential credit or much credit allowance established as possible while keeping your utilization as low as possible. So when they pull your credit report and they see that you have $20,000 in available credit on credit cards, but your bills are all paid off and your high balance from the last 6 months is only $500, they go, man, this is a really responsible person. They have $20,000 in available credit, and they've actually only gone above $500 in utilization in the last, however many months. That's a responsible person. That's a safe bet to give access to other people's money. But you got to be proactive about it. So open and maintain credit lines, and then stay in communication, getting communication with those creditors, and ask them to increase your allowance, and ask them what it's going to take for them to be willing to do so. Some of them will say, look, until you spent $10,000 on this card, we're not going to grant you an allowance, or they'll give you suggestions. Sometimes they won't give you like ironclad guidance because they don't want to be, painted in a corner. They'll just say, well, generally, and you can kind of cajole the people on the phone. I've done this. I've done this with, I did it with American Express. Like, there's probably no harm in saying that. I was able to get on the phone, and the person said, well, I'm not allowed to, we don't tell people what the guidelines are for raising their credit. I'm like, okay, well, let me run a few scenarios by you. What if I do this? What if I do this? What if I spend this? And finally they said, that last one that you said, yeah, do that. So you can kind of cajole them into like showing their hand a little bit about how the process works. But again, just get proactive about credit. Treat it like it's something that's important and valuable, because it is, because it'll change your life. Again, I'm 40 years old. In my early 20s, I went through a period of time when I got really interested in credit, and I was really proactive about it, and I used it to be able to acquire some assets that are literally paying my bills to this day. And you can have that same truth in your life. So if you're into this kind of stuff, I'll ask you to subscribe to my channel. I'm just constantly bringing you content around having an awesome life. It doesn't matter if it's physical, health, nutrition, fitness, personal, relationships, communication, professional, money, authority, audience, impact, like the entire spectrum of what's possible in this world for how awesome life can be. Those are the things that I'm committed to and that I study and that I use myself as a laboratory, as an experiment on. Like I've decided I'm going to take my life and I'm going to make it a laboratory experiment to see how much awesomeness I can fit in. And I think that's probably a pretty cool thing to do with my life. So yeah, I'm going to double down on it, and I'm going to share my results on YouTube and throughout the internet. So that's what this channel is all about. If you're interested in learning more about how to have an awesome life, subscribe. Make sure you click turn the little bell on for notifications so you get notified when I publish new videos. And I will see you on the next one. Thanks for your time.